In this video we continue our big year challenge. We go looking for an American wading bird and we get a couple of surprise birds for our year list. Welcome back, friends. We're back in the UK after a lovely trip to France and continuing with our big year challenge. And what better place to proceed with this than the East Riding of Yorkshire. Hey folks, we're back.
Yeah.
After some pauses for illness and family stuff and going to France, which was cool.
A good few weeks off, haven't we?
Yeah, we're back to our normal schedule of trying to find British birds for our year list. And what better place than one of our favourite places, which is Spurn. Yay! So we've just arrived. It's about 11 o'clock or just after. We're going to go looking for some hopefully scarce or rare waders that we've not seen. Yesterday there was a white-rumped sandpiper and some curlew sandpiper, and I think even an American golden plover was around. So fingers crossed we might get at least one of those. Stick with us. See you in the morning. We woke up to a reasonably calm day, so I wandered down to the beach while Kaylee was getting ready, and it didn't take long until I had some company. As well as this lovely seal that was keeping an eye on me, there was a pied wagtail feeding on the sand as well. Morning folks, excuse my voice, I've got a bit of a cold. I came back from France with it. Never mind, we're in Kilnsea near Spurn and we're going to go and do a bit of birding. Over the previous couple of days, people had seen a white-rumped sandpiper here, which is a wader from North America. We headed to the warren where it had previously been seen, and we weren't alone. Apparently a couple of the birders had seen it that morning, but it had flown off down the beach and nobody could at that point pick it out. We scanned through the many waders for quite a while, almost immediately picking up a new bird for our year list in the shape of an Arctic skua, which instead of normally whizzing past at a distance, this one was sat on the beach. Hey folks, we've just had a lovely view of an Arctic skua on the beach, no less. This white-rumped sandpiper has just been reported by some kind of blocks on the beach. I couldn't see it, but we couldn't get a decent view of the beach from where we were, where all the other birders were. So we're moving to hopefully a better viewpoint to try and catch it. So let's see if we can find it. Unfortunately, after some searching through horrendous heat haze and thousands of waders, we couldn't find the white-rumped sandpiper. Hey, we looked in the area where the white-rumped sandpiper should be. There was a lot of heat haze and there was thousands upon thousands of wading birds.
And the tide's going out.
And the tide's going out, so things are getting further and further away and flying around. We did see the skua again, which was lovely, but I wouldn't have been confident enough to pick out a white-rumped sandpiper amongst all of that. So we're going to try that again this afternoon when the tide's coming in. We're going to nip now to Kilnsea wetlands to see if there's anything there. We're kind of hoping for curlew sandpiper. Fingers crossed. Stick with us. After a reasonably frustrating couple of hours trying to find a needle in a haystack, we hope to trip round the corner to Kilnsea wetlands might produce another bird for our year list in the shape of curlew sandpiper. These also had been sighted here in previous days. We stopped off at the first hide, but that was extremely quiet. There was a heron getting a hard time off some avocets, a lovely golden plover, and although there wasn't much variety from this hide, it gave us some wonderful views of some very young avocet. Just as we were about to move on, my camera battery ran out, so I had to leg it back to the van to get another one, leaving Kaylee to move on without me. Hey folks, we're at Kilnsea wetlands. Kaylee's gone a little bit ahead. I had to go back and get a spare camera battery. We're heading towards the Beacon Ponds part of the reserve because that's apparently where there's some curlew sandpiper, which are a bird we need for our year list. And apparently, just to add a little bit extra to it, they're in lovely red summer plumage. Fingers crossed we'll get them. I've got to catch up with them now. Upon arrival, the curlew sandpipers were not obvious. I did see this common sandpiper, and there were plenty of terns, including this common tern that was sat on a post. Before long, we picked up the curlew sandpiper on the opposite side of the pool, feeding in the shallow water alongside a fenced area that had been put aside for little terns to breed. Curlew sandpipers and dunlin can quite often be mistaken, but the curlew sandpipers here were very close to breeding plumage with a very reddish appearance. Hey folks, okay, we've just got a second year list tick of the day with a couple of curlew sandpipers looking reasonably smart with quite russet plumage. We're now going to head towards, as it's raining now, even though it wasn't supposed to, we are going to head to Top Hill Low Nature Reserve, which I think is about, I think it's less than an hour away. And there have been sightings of blue-winged teal, which is an American duck there. So fingers crossed for that.
With the change in the weather, we decided to move about an hour and 20 minutes north to Top Hill Low Nature Reserve. When we arrived, the weather was significantly better than when we'd left Spurn, so we hot-footed it to the hide where the blue-winged teal had been seen earlier that day. Or should I say supposedly been seen. When we arrived, no one there was aware who'd seen it and where from, and some of these birders have been here for hours. This wasn't very encouraging. There were a number of other birds present from here, mostly waders, lapwing, and quite a large amount of curlew, some coming quite close. There were some ducks there, quite a few hidden in the reeds, and some out in the open. Most of these birds were heavily molting and in eclipse plumage, which makes them really tough to identify. Although scanning through them, many of them seemed to be mollards. The highlight bird here was the green sandpiper that came astonishingly close to the hide. But after sitting in two different hides and investing probably too much time, we decided we weren't going to see the blue-winged teal on this occasion.
Hey folks. Unfortunately, slight disappointment. We didn't get the blue-winged teal.
Yep.
It was reported this morning, 11:15, but everyone we've spoken to here
Hasn't seen it.
hasn't seen it.
Some people have sat in the hide for 2.5 hours. So.
Yeah, it's been a long time. There's lots of other cool birds here, like green sandpiper and such, but no blue-winged teal. It's now mid-afternoon, so I'm not sure what we're going to do if we head back to Spurn or elsewhere. Stick with us, find out.
We headed back towards Spurn, a little disappointed we missed the blue-winged teal, but still, we had picked up the Arctic skewer and the curlew sandpiper, so not at all bad. Now, time to try and find the white-rumped sandpiper. When we arrived back, thinking it was a better idea to come back in the afternoon was a mistake. Not only did the number of birds seem to have increased, the heat haze was still bad, and the glare from the sun was even worse. Regardless of this seemingly unsurmountable challenge, we did stick around for high tide, and it did pay off. Unfortunately not with the white-rumped sandpiper, but we did get another bird for our year list in the shape of a whimbrel, a slightly smaller relative of the curlew. We watched all the wonderful waders coming into shore as the tide came in, including this lovely grey plover, and chatted to a few of our subscribers which happened to be there as well. We genuinely do love chatting to you guys.
Hey folks, we've been, well, for a long time looking out through a screen trying to find the white-rumped sandpiper. There's so many birds out there. How many, Dunlin, would you say? Thousands upon thousands of them. But no sign yet. So it's coming into evening, so we're going to go to Kilnsea wetlands to see if there's anything turned up there as it's high tide, and then possibly have some dinner.
We headed back to Kilnsea wetlands in the hope that some waders might have showed up there due to high tide. On the way to the first hide, there was a lovely willow warbler that was jumping around in some of the foliage, eventually showing itself enough so we could identify it, and when we arrived at the first hide, the bird numbers had increased, but not as much as we would have liked. There was plenty of little egrets, and when I say plenty, I mean dozens. There were a number of avocets here, some adults, and quite a number of young, some coming really close to the hide. In the far distance, I did pick up another wader, which I believe is a green shank. There was a common sandpiper at pretty close range, possibly the same one we saw earlier that morning, and as we were about to walk up towards Beacon Ponds, there was a grey heron that tried to land. The avocets had other ideas. Looking over towards Beacon Ponds, there was a lot of action. And once we were able to get binoculars and cameras on these birds, we found out they were terns. Once we got up onto the bank looking over the pools, we did see plenty of terns. Most of them were still in the air, but there were some that had landed, like this common tern sat on the same post as the previous one this morning. On the far bank there was a good number of little tern, and feeding in front of the little tern there were a few waders. Mainly it was dunlin, but these were accompanied also by an oyster catcher. As we were about to leave to go and get some dinner, we did get an extremely close view of a very young avocet.
Hey folks, we've come back to Kilnsea wetlands to see if any of the waders had come in at high tide. Not many had. There was a group of redshank, a few dunlin and a couple of godwits. Other than that, not very much. There was plenty of terns around, flying up in the sky.
Said to be a rosy one.
Someone said there was a roseate here, but we didn't see it. So anyway, it's been a good day. It's been a good day. We've got 3 new birds for the year list: Wimbrel, Curlew Sandpiper, and Arctic Skewer.
Some amazing subscribers.
Yeah, we've met some subscribers: Rob, Alison, and their little dog, who was called Stig, which was really cool. We chatted to him for ages. That's why there was like a bit missing in the video, because we were just nattering. Yeah, anyway, it's been fun. Tomorrow morning, I haven't given up on the white rump sandpiper yet, so we're going to go and have some dinner now. Maybe a pint. Let's see how the evening goes. And then,
busy it is.
Yeah, and then in the morning, I'm going to head down early to try and see if we can get this white rump sandpiper before we go home. So stick with us for that.
Walking down the path towards the car park, I glanced over at the farm on the opposite side of the field, seeing some bird-like shapes sat on some of the farm equipment. One of them was a wood pigeon, the other a little owl. We had seen this bird once in the past on a previous visit, but is always a privilege to see and a great way to end our visit here. And as the starlings were coming in to roost, we headed for dinner.
Just cooking dinner. Yep. Nice chilli. Yum, 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 yum.
We'd parked the van within a couple of minutes of the warren, so after a delicious dinner and a cup of wine, I wandered down to see the shorebirds coming into roost. It was a beautiful sight watching the sun go down and the birds coming in, with lovely views of Sandwich Turn and some of the waders like Knot. Although we hadn't got a couple of the birds we were looking for, we had picked up 3 new birds for our year list, and as it was late, we decided to call it a night.
Morning, folks. It's not much after 6 in the morning. I've got up early to have one last try for the white rump sandpiper. I met some people down there last night and they were pretty confident that we might get it early this morning. So let's see if we can find it.
When I arrived at the warren screen, I was the only birder there. I think all the other birders were at the other side sea watching, but I had a bee in my bonnet. I was determined to find us this white rump sandpiper. Looking out from the screen, the tide was pretty much fully in, so most of the smaller waders hadn't arrived yet. There were some larger waders present now, and amongst the quite large number of curlew, there were some bar-tailed godwits. These are generally the less common of our 2 godwit species in the country, so lovely to see. As I continued to watch the scene in front of me, other birders showed up, and so did other birds. As the tide slowly started to move out, that gave space for some of the smaller waders to come in, and first it was the Knot. Many of these birds flying in groups, some of the groups being specific species and some being mixed. Amongst the impressive number of curlews here, I did pick out another Wimbrel, which I was absolutely over the moon to see. Although this species generally breeds in the Arctic Circle, there are a few pairs that nest up in Shetland. But the species is far from common and red listed in the UK. Most birds being seen on passage. As the time passed and the tide continued to go out, the smaller waders started to come in large flocks, mainly dunlin. These were here in huge numbers. Apparently someone had done a rough count the previous night of the dunlin present and counted 6,500. As we continued to watch, not finding the white rump sandpiper as yet, with one of the birders being very determined it would show up, a few golden plovers showed up. These are beautiful birds, and on previous days there had been a sighting of the American version of this bird, but for love nor money I wouldn't have been able to pick it out of this lot. Scanning through all the birds here was a challenge too, because occasionally the birds would get spooked. On more than one occasion they all flew due to a pair of Arctic skewer that were hunting up and down the shoreline. And although very frustrating having to start scanning through thousands of birds again after they've lifted and landed, it was a privilege to see these amazing hunters at work. By this time we've been stood there for quite a while, scanned through thousands of waders, and none of the birders yet had found the white rump sandpiper. And as the tide quickly retreated, leaving bare mud flats, our job was just about to get 10 times harder. We thought we already had a challenge scanning through the waders present, But then more arrived. Thousands upon thousands of dunlin and grey plovers, golden plovers, curlew and knot. And although we were joined by about a dozen other birders scanning through this sea of waders in front of us, this task was a little much, with no one at this point being able to pick out the white-rumped sandpiper. But stepping away from the fact that we couldn't find the bird we were looking for, this spectacle in itself was amazing to see. Getting to experience thousands of wading birds of different species all in one place is simply breathtaking. And although I would have loved to continue witnessing this amazing sight for longer, it was time to leave. And our parting gift was another Arctic skewer sat on the sand. Fantastic. It was great to be back at one of our favourite birding spots, Spurn, and I'm sure you'll see plenty more of this place as we go into autumn, as it's a hot spot for autumn migration.
Hello. Unfortunately, we didn't get the white-rumped sandpiper. We think it may have gone. Yeah, one was sighted in Norfolk this morning, so maybe that could be our bird. Nevertheless, it's been a really cool weekend. We've picked up 3 new birds for the year list: a Wimbrel, a curlew sandpiper and Arctic skewer. Yep. Got some amazing views of waders, just nuts. And also we got the little owl and green sandpiper yesterday. Excellent, really good weekend. Thanks so much for watching. Please like,
please subscribe,
and please press the notification bell. We'll see you soon. Bye bye.